Dear students, welcome to the third video lecture of chapter 4. In the last lecture, students, we have discussed the long-term component and seasonal component, and in this lecture we are going to discuss some more theories. Now there are four components of time series: long-term or trend, seasonal component, cyclical component, and the fourth is, students, random or irregular component. Now the two components which I am going to discuss today, I have written those two components first on the board. Students, the first component is cyclical component. Now pay attention. The variations occurring in the variable of time series, which is approximately regular in approximately regular time intervals of more than 1 year, are the effects of cyclical component. So the first point, students, the variations in the variable of time series in approximately regular time intervals for more than 1 year are the effect of cyclical components. These variations are less regular compared to the seasonal component. Means these cycles do not repeat at regular intervals of times as we have in seasonal components. Now the third point, very important, VSQ, the period of oscillation of these variations. Oscillation means repetition. The period of oscillation of this variation can be 2 to 10 years, and in some of the specific cases it can be for 10 to 15 years. Means this cyclical component can repeat within a span of 2 to 10 years, and students, in some specific circumstances it can be repeated within the span of 10 to 15 years. Now students, the cyclical component is also known as short-term component because the time duration of variation is always less than the time of whole time series, which can be, students, around 40 to 50 years. This component, students, is treated as a short-term component because the time of oscillation of this variation, the repetition of this variation, is less compared to the time of whole time series, which is a span of 40 to 50 years. Thus, economic cycles of boom and recession are the best examples of these variations. At present, students, in the share market, in the real estate market, in the auto industry, everywhere there is a cycle of recession. This cycle passes through 4 stages. First is depression, then recovery, then boom, and once again recession. First, depression means acute recession, then a phase of recovery, then you can say boom, and once again back to recession. Now this type of variations are found in the time series of price, production, price of shares in stock, etc. And the traders can plan suitably with the help of estimate of time series and the measures of this variation. And definitely, students, this component is denoted by CT. Pay attention, I am summarizing the entire short mode, students. The first point, the variations seen in the variable of time series in approximately regular time intervals for more than 1 year is the effect of cyclical component. So whenever the time period is greater than 1 year, it is due to the cyclical component. These variations are less regular as compared to the seasonal component. You know, seasons repeat every year in the same time format, but these variations are less regular. The period of oscillation, period of repetition of this variation in general can be within a span of 2 to 10 years, and in some of the specific circumstances it can be from 10 to 15 years. As such, this component is also named as short-term component because the time of oscillation of variation, the time of repetition of variation is already less or is always less than the time of entire time series, students, which can be up to 40 to 50 years. The economic cycles of recession and boom are the best examples of cyclical component. This cycle passes through 4 stages: depression, recovery, boom, and again recession. This type of cyclical fluctuations are seen in the time series of production, supply, demand, price of stocks and shares, etc. Based on this variation, students, traders and suppliers can accordingly plan their productions or plan their targets. And of course, this component is denoted by C suffix T, means cyclical component. Very easy, students. 6 points you have to write. Now students, the last component, random or irregular component. The next component is, students, random or irregular component. Now, the effect of random or irregular component is also seen in the variation of the variable of time series, in addition to the effect of short-term component like seasonal and cyclical, students, and which also gives short-term effect. If the values in the time series change due to sudden and unpredictable causes, these changes are called as random variations. The best example is the COVID-19 situation. This is random, students. We did not predict the situation of COVID, students, in advance. So this is the best example of random or irregular component. So whenever we see change in the variable of time series due to some other component than seasonal and cyclical, students, then it is the effect of random or irregular component. And if the values of time series changes due to sudden and unpredictable causes, then it is the effect of random or irregular component. The time interval of this variation is not certain. Of course, students, can we predict the impact that COVID-19 will stop at this level or this time period? No. Now students, we are in such a phase that we have to coexist with COVID-19. So students, the time duration of these variations is not certain and predictable. The variations can be attributed to any one of the trend, seasonal, cyclical component. The variation which cannot be, students, the variation which cannot be attributed to trend, seasonal and cyclical component can be attributed due to the effect of random or irregular component. Means if you cannot understand why these variations are, that variation cannot be explained by trend, by seasonal and cyclical, then definitely, students, it is the impact of random or irregular component. These fluctuations appear completely unexpected and are irregular. This can never repeat within a specific time period. The time of oscillation of these components can never be predicted. It cannot be predicted, it does not repeat regularly, and it cannot be controlled. Did we predict the impact of COVID-19? No. Can we say that it will be repeated regularly? No. And can we control, or can we, you can say, control that impact of COVID-19 in advance? No. So in general, the random component cannot be predicted, it cannot be controlled, and it cannot repeat at regular intervals of times. These variations occur due to man-made factors like war, strike, political instability, or upheaval. Students, in textbook they have written the word political upheaval, UPHEAVAL, sorry. Political upheaval, it means political instability, or due to natural factors like flood, earthquakes, droughts, etc. And this component, students, is denoted by RT. Why I am, students, strictly you can say sticking to textbook? Because these short notes are written, students, as per textbook only. We cannot write, students, these short notes on our own. Students, be careful, students, we have to strictly stick to textbook. Now let us summarize. The variations occurring in the variable of time series. The variations occurring in the variable of time series in addition to the short-term variations which are given by seasonal cyclical component, you can say, can be attributed to the random or irregular component. The effect of random or irregular component is seen in variation addition to the approximate short-term regular components like seasonal cycle, which also give short-term effects. The first point is a bit odd to understand, so I am focusing on first point. The variations occurring in the variable of time series in addition to the short-term components which are seasonal and cyclical are also, you can say, due to or are due to random or irregular component. Are due to random or irregular component. If there is a sudden change in the value of variable of a time series, then it is due to random or irregular component. So if the values in the time series changes due to sudden and unpredictable causes, these changes are due to random or irregular component. The time duration or the time interval and the effect of this variation is not certain. Now we can never predict the time duration and the effect of this type of random or irregular variations. The variations which cannot be explained by trend, seasonal or cyclical component are affiliated to random or irregular component. The variations, students, which are unexplained by trend, by seasonal and by cyclical component, students, are basically due to random or irregular component. These fluctuations appear completely unexpected and are irregular. We never expected the impact of COVID-19, so this comes unexpected and are never regular. This cannot be predicted, this cannot be controlled, and this type of variations does not repeat regularly. Now random or irregular variations or component has, or this type of variations are due to two main factors. One is man-made and another is natural. The natural factors are earthquake, drought, floods, etc. And man-made factors are strike, political upheaval means crisis, war, etc. The random component is, students, denoted by RT. Now in all the short notes, we can add one point, students, based on additive model. That I am explaining only for random. You can write it for seasonal, you can write it for cyclical, you can write it for trend. Now if I want to obtain the random component from additive model, then, students, additive model was YT is equal to T of T plus ST plus CT plus RT. So if I make RT as subject of formula, from Y, if I subtract the impact of the other three components, trend, seasonal and cyclical, then I get the effect of random component. Same way we can get for trend, we can get for seasonal, and we can get for cyclical. Students, this are to be written in your own words. This point I am telling, not other short notes. This is to be written in your own words. If it is for random, we can write like this: from additive model, random component can be obtained as follows. If it is seasonal, then we can write from additive model, seasonal component can be obtained as follows. Same way for cyclical and same way for trend. That much easily, students, you can understand. Now, students, methods of determining trend. This was the major part of short note, students, of this chapter. Now, students, as we have two methods of fitting a regression line, students, same way we have two methods of fitting trend. Trend is of two types. One is linear. Linear trend means a trend line, and one is curvilinear. that is not there in your syllabus, students. So there are two methods of determining trend. One is by the graphical method and other is by the method of least square. So same way as we have regression line in two different forms, one is by graphical approach scatter diagram method and the other was by the method of least square. Same way, students, we have two methods of fitting trend. One is graphical method and other is method of least square. So students, the next VSQ, which are the two methods of determining or fitting a trend? The answer is graphical method and the second is, students, the method of least squares. I hope all of you have understood this. Now students, what is the basic approach for graphical method? Now this is very similar to students' scatter diagram method. The explanation of graphical method, students, it is very similar to the method of scatter diagram, students. You can very easily understand. This is the easiest method to fit trend. Now in time series, we have two variables. One is time and other is value of variable quantity yt. In regression also we were having two variables, x and y. X was independent, y was dependent. In time series, time is independent and y is dependent. So here we take variable t or variable time on x-axis and value of variable quantity yt on y-axis with an appropriate scale. Recall, in regression we were taking variable x on x-axis and variable y on y-axis. Here we have two variables, independent variable t and dependent variable yt. We take, students, time t on x-axis and value of variable quantity yt on y-axis with an appropriate scale. And we plot the ordered pairs given, students. We will be given different time periods and different values of variable quantity yt as we are given ordered pairs x1, y1, x2, y2, x3, y3. Here t1, y1, t2, y2, t3, y3 up to tn, yn. These points are joined in order by line segments and this shows the variation of the values of variable. Now students, these points are joined in order by line segments. There we were drawing a line such that maximum number of points are on the line or nearby the line, but here we are joining all the points with the help of line segment. Then a smooth curve is drawn through the middle of the points by personal judgment. Students, I will show you when we do the graph, but after joining the points with the help of line segment, a smooth curve, a trend line is drawn by personal judgment. This curve shows the trend by ignoring the short-term variations in the values of time series. So students, let us summarize the short note in 5 points. All of you pay attention. This is going to be, students, very easy if you understand. Students, the first and the foremost. Students, the first and the foremost. This is the easiest method of obtaining trend. Okay, let us begin with one step before. How many methods are there to fit trend or determine trend? 2. Graphical method and, students, method of least squares. Now I am discussing the short note on graphical method to obtain trend. Now students, from this chapter I have decided that I will do the long sums also on the board. So you have to cooperate when I'm discussing, or when I'm sending you the sums. You have to understand very perfectly. So short note, first point, this is the easiest method to fit trend. In this method, independent variable t is taken on x-axis and the value of variable quantity yt is taken on y-axis with an appropriate scale. The given ordered pairs are plotted on the graph. After plotting the points, all the points are joined in order. First point, second point, third point, fourth point, fifth point, like that, in order. This shows the variations in the value of time series. After joining the points with the help of line segment, a smooth curve is drawn by personal judgment, and that curve, students, is called trend of the time series. And that trend is ignoring the short-term variations in the time series. Then the future estimates can be also obtained with the help of that curve which is drawn. That curve is a line, students. Now, merits of this method. This method is easy to understand and use. The trend can be found without any mathematical calculations or formulas. This is very important. In graphical approach, in the method of scatter diagram, we don't have any calculation. This method can be used even if the trend is non-linear, students. This method can be used even if the trend is non-linear. The judgment about the type of the curve to be fitted for obtaining trend can be given by this method. The judgment about type of the curve to be fitted for obtaining trend can be given by this method. The fourth point, students, I will explain with the help of graph. Whether to draw a trend line or whether to draw a trend curve, that is obtained from graphical method only. Now, limitations. It is possible that different people may draw different trend lines or curve. Hence, the uniformity is not maintained in the trend and its estimate. That was there in scatter diagram also. Different persons may draw different line. Hence, there is no uniformity maintained in the trend here and even in estimate. The estimates cannot be accurate as this is not the mathematical method and it is not possible to know the reliability of estimates. Students, whatever estimates we obtain on the basis of graphical method are not reliable or accurate, as this is not a perfect method, and hence whatever estimates we obtain from the graph may not be reliable. So students, merits. First point, let us summarize. This method is easy to understand. The trend can be found without any mathematical formulas and calculations. In this method, we can even find the trend if it is not linear. The judgment about type of curve to be drawn or to be fitted for obtaining trend can be given by this method. Means after joining those line segment, which type of curve is to be fitted can be only obtained by this graphical method. Limitations. The method, it is possible that different people may draw different curves, hence uniformity is not maintained in trend and the estimates. And the estimates cannot be accurate as this is not a mathematical method and it is not possible to know the reliability of estimates. In short, in the graphical method, first we have to write the description of short note, then merits, and then limitations. Students, merits and limitations, I told you we will be writing as given in textbook. We cannot change the words also, students, in merits and demerits. So students, in our today's lecture, we have discussed cyclical component. Then students, we have discussed random component. The next point is, students, methods of fitting trend. As I told you, same way as regression, in time series we have two variables. Time t is independent variable, variable quantity yt is dependent variable. Say it is time series of price of petrol, then time period is independent variable and price of petrol is dependent variable. So students, we have discussed two methods, or there are two methods in short of fitting trend. First is graphical method and second is the method of least squares. So even if students I do some long sums of time series, you can easily understand the method of regression also. So this is not at all difficult, students, but why I am re-emphasizing, because this chapter is highly theoretical, and for your knowledge, in the last 3 papers of new paper style, 17, 18, 19 and say 20 also. So our first board examination started from 17, 18, 19, 20 students. In the last 3 to 4 papers, they have not asked any of the short notes of component. So in 2021 students, I am expecting one of the components in the short note, whether it is asked for 2 marks or 3 marks, you have to write all the points. Students, whether it is of 2 marks or 3 marks, marks are irrespective of the content. Students, your content of the entire component should be written, whether it will be a short note of say 1 mark or even 1 mark, sorry, they cannot ask short note, but what I mean to say, whether it is a short, even it is a short question, explain cyclical component, if it is asked in section B, then also we have to write minimum 4 points. So irrespective of marks, students, we will concentrate on components and its details. So you have to write this short note: cyclical, random or irregular component. Don't forget that extra point which I have taught. It is to be written for every component now. Say if you want to obtain trend, then T of T will be subject of formula. It will be Yt minus Rt plus St plus Ct. So whichever component you want to obtain, from Yt you subtract the remaining 3 components, students, you get the relative component of time series. Now students, let us discuss 2-3 MCQs if we can. Exercise 4. Now pay attention. I think first 3 MCQs we can easily discuss. Which type of variations are produced in the time series variable due to seasonal component? Now seasonal component are regular and repetitive in nature. So what is the correct option? C. Students, check in the seasonal component. I have taught that seasonal component, students, are regular and repetitive in nature, students. So the first answer is, students, C. Now students, which variable is shown in decrease in the production of a company due to strike? Now if you recall, in the random or irregular component, we told that the variations are due to 2 factors. One is man-made. Man-made factors are war, strike, political upheaval, etc. So decrease in production of a company due to strike is affiliated to random or irregular component. So students, the answer of second MCQ is A. Then name the methods for fitting the linear trend equation to find linear trend. Name the method for fitting the linear equation, students. Still that method we have not done. Whenever it is an equation, students, it is the method of least squares, students. Whenever it is equation, then it is the method of least squares. Then how do you show the additive model of time series? I have already written, students. Yt is equal to Tt plus St plus Ct plus Rt. So students, the correct option is B. Yt is equal to Tt plus St plus Ct plus Rt. Then fifth question, state the independent variable of time series. Just now I explained, in time series, time period is the independent variable and variable quantity Yt is the dependent variable. So state the independent variable of time series, students. The answer is time period T. Then which component of time series is impossible to predict? Of course, random component, students. This can be also easily done. Which component of time series, students, is impossible to predict? The answer is random component. Which of the following variations are due to cyclical component? Students, pay attention. Which of rising demand during winter? Rise in demand during winter is due to seasonal. Decrease in the share price due to recession in share market. Decrease in agricultural production due to excessive rains and continuously decreasing death rate. You can say the decrease in share price due to economic cycle of recession in the share market, students. So in 7th question, the answer is B. Then 9th question, which of the following fluctuation is the effect of seasonal component? Increase in migration to cities from rural areas, increasing number of vehicles on roads in a city, increase in the number of tourists during school vacation, and increased death during a certain epidemic. Students, the correct option is C, because vacation is a particular summer season. So in the 9th sem, students, the correct option is C. Very simple, students. Then give an example of time series having decreasing trend, section B. Give an example of time series, students, having decreasing trend. We can say decreasing use of landline phones with the invention of mobile phones. Then what is time series? All of you know. The set of observations collected at specific time period or specific time interval is called time series. So students, section B also we can discuss many questions, but at present I am restricting myself to section A. So your work to write these short notes. From next time we are going to start exercise 4.1 graph. Is this clear, students? So start studying, work hard. Today many of you have shown homework, but still many of you are pending in homework, and you should show your homework, students, as soon as possible. Thank you, students. We will continue in the next lecture.